I always had this thing in the back of my mind is like, let me start a business or let me do something and then get into real estate. Let me make a ton of money and then get into real estate. And I slowly started to realize and talking with people and like learning about it. It's like, you don't need to like do X before you do Y. Just do Y. Just do the thing you want to do. And then you're good to go. So that's basically how I transitioned. So I learned how to like wholesale. I learned how to flip with none of my own money and really just like got into it. I'm like, okay, cool. Let's just make this happen.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Creating Wealth Podcast, where I, Kyle, from Curtin Real Estate, interview local top dogs in the real estate investing, wealth building, and personal finance industries. Let's build together. What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 112 of the Creating Wealth Podcast. Today, we have the great pleasure chatting with Viktor Jiracek. Viktor is an awesome flipper and buy and hold investor out of Gainesville, Florida. He does between 20 and 30 flips a year. Viktor, what is going on, my man? How are you?
I'm good. Appreciate you having me on, and appreciate I can kind of share my story and help out your audience here.
Absolutely. Super pumped to have you, my man, and, kind of dig into things. So to kind of jump right in, tell us a little bit about how you caught the real estate bug and, started to kind of jump into that space.
Yeah, for sure. So I went full-time in real estate about 4 years ago. So about 2018 time frame. And basically what happened, I was working full-time. I was in healthcare. I was a home health administrator. So basically like after someone gets discharged from the hospital, we'd send like a nurse, or we'd send a speech therapist or someone to help them recover. And I just realized like that wasn't for me. Like I don't want to be doing that. And I always had this thing in the back of my mind is like, let me start a business or let me do something and then get into real estate. Let me make a ton of money and then get into real estate. And I slowly started to realize and talking with people and like learning about it. It's like, you don't need to like do X before you do Y. Just do Y. Just do the thing you want to do. And then you're good to go. So that's basically how I transitioned. So I learned how to like wholesale. I learned how to flip with none of my own money and really just like got into it. I'm like, okay, cool. Let's just make this happen.
That's beautiful, man. Absolutely. It's really interesting you say that too, because there's a good buddy of mine who he's another investor. And one of the things that he mentioned is how do you get the closest spot in a parking lot? And he's like, oh, you just look for the closest parking spot, and like it was really interesting because like it sounds so simple, right? Like, oh, like how do you start flipping houses? Like you just like kind of take the steps and go. And instead of like, but the common mentality is like, oh, I gotta read like these 6 books, I gotta like listen to these 3 podcasts, and then save up like X amount of dollars to do this and meet this guy. And it's like, it's interesting like how much of like a mind's game, like a mental shift, like how oftentimes like most of us in a way kind of like talk ourselves out of it, or take kind of like a much rounder approach instead of taking a more kind of straightforward approach that might be a bit more challenging. It's really interesting, like the way that it works.
I agree. And that's what the route I was going to go initially. Like it was going to take me a long time. Let me save up for years and years. And then I realized like, you don't need to do that. Like there's ways to, like you can wholesale, for example. You don't need a lot of money for that. You do like fix and flips like I did. I can talk more about the details, but like you get a money partner, like you find the deal, you run the renovations, you sell the place, and then you find someone to fund it and you like split the profit. So that's the idea of a money partner. So in that case, like you just need to find the deal. Like someone else can put in the money, they can get a return, but you just got to find the deal. So that's your focus suddenly.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I love it, man. You know what I mean? Just kind of finding going hard on the thing that you enjoy doing the most, and then complementing the other parts of the journey with other roles and stuff. So How was it? Was it like the first flip that you did? Like, did you initially like find the deal first and then, kind of like sharing what you were doing and stuff? And then like the money partner kind of came in, and how did that kind of work?
That was pretty much it. So so my first 2 deals I wholesaled actually. So the first one was a 3K. I made about 3,000. Second one was I think 5,000, something like that. So it wasn't like a huge life-changing amount of money, but it got me started. It proved like, hey, this is real. There's something here. The third one, like I had a deal I had under contract, and I just couldn't like wholesale it to anyone. they're like, oh, I don't like the deal for this reason or this reason or this reason. Like they kept listing reasons like, oh, it's not good. So I exhausted my buyers list. So I was like, I want to help out the seller because they were in a situation. It was an out-of-state seller. It was like a hurricane hit property, so it had a lot of damage, and like there's a lot of reasons like I wanted to help them out. And they're like sick and tired of the property, and it was an inherited property. It's like all these different like layers of motivation, and I'm like, I want to help them out. So I was like, let me get creative. So basically, I pitched the deal more like a partnership. Like, hey, I found this great deal. Let's you put in the money and let's split it. And it worked out. So that first one, I think we bought it for like 105 or something like that. We put in like 30 and we sold for like high hundreds. We made like 20,000 net profit. That's after all expenses before taxes. And like that was a nice chunk of change. That was great. And in that split, like they were 2/3, I was 1/3. And so I made like 9,000, which is great. That was a jump up from my previous deals. But it really unlocked the idea like, oh, I can like flip houses. I can, I don't need money. I can like get into this if I really want to. And that's like really what unlocked it. I haven't wholesaled since, and I've just been flipping and rentals and that sort of thing, and getting money partners. For that first one, it was 1/3, 2/3, but eventually became like 50-50, and like I can do my own deals and just, evolve from there. But if I didn't do that first one, I wouldn't be where I'm at today.
That's beautiful. Absolutely. What were kind of like a couple of the biggest lessons that you got from like that first flip?
I recommend like when you're doing flips, like do an inspection, especially like you're a beginner, like you don't necessarily know what to look for. Like, hey, is this roof in good shape? Hey, is this good electrical? So that's the first thing. Second thing is like listen to the inspection. So for example, in our first flip, like they had some water damage in the subfloors, and we just replaced the flooring above it. And we're like, oh, whatever. We didn't, it's fine. It's not going to be a problem. And then it became a problem because when we tried to sell it, like the inspection came up with like those issues with like the subfloor issues. And then they asked for credit, and it became a bigger thing than it was. Like if we just solved it and fixed it in the beginning, we would have been fine. But it became a bigger issue in the end. So I guess that's kind of lesson number 3. Like don't cut corners, because it's going to show up and hit you. It's going to bite you in the butt eventually. Like someone's going to find out, or something's, it's going to show up. And especially for flips, like it's really hard to hide stuff. So just fix it, when you have a chance to fix it.
Gotcha. No, that makes a ton of sense. Yeah. That's interesting too with the, like still getting the inspections done during flips and stuff. Cause do you typically like to use like an equity partner for like a down payment for a hard money lender to kind of leverage it that way? Or do you usually like to kind of like just use the equity partner and like use that? What's kind of your preference?
we do all different ways. So I've done it like they put in all the cash and then we split it. I've done it like we get a hard money loan, they put in the down payment, then we split it. If I have a preference, I'm open to whatever, like whatever gets the deal done, whatever, we can do to move forward, close it and sell it, move on. I like if they put in all cash, just because there's less fees, there's less closing costs. They can close quicker. That's really nice. It's going to be a bigger profit at the end of the day. So I do prefer that if given the choice.
Yeah, no, I definitely feel you there.
Yeah, just makes it easier.
Yeah. So Victor, what's kind of your vision for the long term, like with the business, or medium to long term?
Yeah, for sure. I want to keep flipping. I really enjoy it, so I want to keep doing it. I really like that sweet spot of like 30 a year, like keeping it at that sweet spot. I've heard like there's like a valley of death, so to speak, when you're going like from 40 to 70 and above and beyond that, just because like you have to hire people, and they have to really do a good job doing what they're doing, like finding deals and running the projects, or else it's done. And also like the more flips you do at that volume, like if you're doing 50, 100 a year, like you're making less per deal, if that makes sense. Like you're doing more, that's great, but you're making less. So I really like this model, like we have big margins type of thing. So that's the plan. That's that's pretty much it. Just do more flips. I used to have a plan where it was like, do this and then do real estate, or like do this and then do the next thing. And I don't have that feeling anymore, which means like this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. Like I want to, keep doing this. I want to keep at this, which is a good feeling. So it's not like, oh, I can't wait to do the next thing. Like this is what I want to do. I do that, and then the kind of second thing, which is somewhat overlapping, is I help and mentor students as well. So like I bring them on, like teach them how to find deals, how to find contractors, how to find money, how to run numbers. So I teach them A to Z. So really just be like two overlapping things, like me doing deals and me also teaching people how to do deals. That's pretty much it. Keep it simple, you know?
That's beautiful. Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah.
So take us kind of through like, you know, after like getting that first project done, or maybe like the first couple projects, kind of jumping into the realm of like, you know, maybe having a couple going on at the same time. And like, did you kind of have like a couple other people to kind of like, you know, start managing some of these projects, or were you kind of like, you know, running around all over the place for a bit and trying to keep things together?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So the progression was like the first year we did 2, then we did 8, then we did 20. Last year I did like a little over 30, and then the goal again is 30 this year. So it was like a stepwise, like upward growth type of thing. I think one of the first hires I had, and I still have, is like a project manager, because like dealing with contractors, getting quotes, meeting contractors, paying contractors, that takes a lot of time. So just to have someone take care of that was a huge time saver. Like you got to focus on your highest value activities, and highest value activities like finding deals, finding money. So you should be focusing on those two things and have someone else take care of the details. So that was pretty much it. And how I do it with a project manager, this is how I recommend folks do it as well. Just because sometimes like deals can be inconsistent. Like for example, like last week I closed 3, but then I don't have anything for a couple weeks, if that makes sense. So how I do it is just a flat fee for the project manager. It's $2,000 total, you know, $1,000 up front, $1,000 when they're done. And that's, you know, that's a good amount of compensation too. I asked the project manager, like, hey, how much time do you spend per property on average? And she was saying like, maybe 10 to 20 hours. So like on a per hour basis, like she's doing really good. And I'm happy because I can focus on other stuff. And, you know, if the deal's good, then plus or minus 2,000 doesn't, you know, doesn't really change the deal. It doesn't really change a huge amount of profit. It just saves me a lot of time. So that's one of the first, like, you know, I'd say when you're going from like 0 to 10, 0 to 5 to 10, like you're good, you can do it on your own. But after that, like it helps to have like a project manager have a VA or someone just to help you do more. And the other part of that is like, yes, you can do more and earn more, but then also like you can hire out the things you don't like to do. So let's say you have like a pie of real estate and like 80% of stuff you like to do and 20% of stuff you don't like to do. You can hire out that 20%. And then suddenly like you're spending 100% of, you know, time doing what you want to do, which is really cool. So that's what really helped me like get to the next level. And that's why I always say we, like I use the Victorian we, because it's never like a solo effort. It's always like I have people to help me. I have, you know, it's contractors, it's inspectors, it's, you know, real estate. It's like it's a team effort. So I can't say like, oh, I did this and I flipped this many houses and you know, it doesn't really sit well.
Yeah, no, I totally hear you there. And I love that model too. Like kind of, you know, implementing like a project manager like that. And especially on a basis like that. And like you said, especially boiling it down to, you know, like the price per hour, like it looks really good. You know what I mean? Like, especially like if it, you know, doesn't take too long, you know, generally speaking, and checks out pretty good for everybody, right?
Yeah. And that's the other thing. Like when it's me or like a project manager, like it gets easier the more deals you do. It becomes more streamlined. You can reuse the contractors, you can reuse inspectors, like you can reuse people and reuse service providers, which is really cool. So her, you know, 10 to 20 per deal might be like 5 to 10 now, you know, which is an even better deal. And then it's working with the same people. So it's, you know, there's a lot of value in everything there.
That's
just
awesome.
Becomes easier. That's my point. Like your first one's your hardest, then it's easier from there.
That's awesome. I love that. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So take us through kind of like the, I guess like the equity partner, you know, like capital raising kind of side of things, you know, like, so like building up, you know, the systems of like getting the deals and acquisition, you know, managing, going through all that. Take us kind of through the other side of like, at this point, you know, with the kind of track record that you have, do people often come to you and be like, oh, all right, you know, like I'd love to kind of like be a part of something like this. Like, how can we like work together and that type of thing?
That's pretty much it for my like current deals. I don't necessarily have a problem raising money, which is good. Just because like I've done so much, like I think I've bought like 98 properties and I've sold like 86 or something like that. So I have a good track record and I've only lost money on a couple of them. And I've learned from that, so I'm not going to make those mistakes again. But like for me, raising money, like it's relatively easy, and you'd be surprised like how many people want to get into real estate, like they don't know how. So you can be that vehicle for them to get into it. They might have, you know, 10, 20, 100,000 sitting in the bank, and they're earning like a very nominal interest. It's like they're interested in real estate, but they're busy. And then you can be that person who's like, I have this deal, let's partner on it. And they're like, hell yeah, let's do it. I want to get into real estate. You can make it happen. Let's do it. And they can get a much better return. Like the example I gave, the money partner put in, how much they put in? They put in 105 plus 30. So they put in 135 and they pulled out 20. And that was in like 6 months. And that was like a 10-20% return in 6 months, which is insane, compared to what they can get at the bank or stocks or anything like that. So you just have to, that's part of like the raising money as well. And this is what's helped me too, is you think of the raising money like you're giving them an opportunity. It's not like, yes, oh, give me money. It's here's an opportunity to make something and do really well. And if you could do well financially, so let's do it together. And you're inviting them to have an opportunity. So you don't feel like you're bothering people or you're like, pestering people. If it's a good deal, it should sell itself.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with you. That's the capital raising aspect is something that I've taken a pretty recent interest to up in my neck of the woods.
Yeah.
Like I've been working with an operator for like multifamily, like a little bit of syndication kind of stuff, JVs and stuff like that, and starting to really like hone in on being able to like provide those opportunities and like connect, like the community with like different deals and turn it into like an education, like a learning tool for people and stuff like that. And it's really, really interesting stuff, man. And like exactly like you said, like people that might want to like jump into real estate, but like don't know what to do, or like, don't know the right people or whatever, the case may be. You might be able to be the person to be able to get them past that first hurdle, or at least be able to like, dip their toes in, see if it's something that's, kind of makes their ears perk up. And it's really, really interesting stuff,
and for sure. And then you'll see again, like it's easier like to run the flips. The more you do, like the first one's the hardest. It's also easier to raise money the more deals you do. It doesn't have to be flips. It can be rentals or whatever, but it does become easier. But that first one's your hardest, and it's important to like build a track record. So this is another good tip. I have a portfolio page. So I have a page where it breaks down like literally every single flip I've ever done and like how much we made, what we bought it for, like when we bought it, all that stuff. And then it's a link to that project, like at least like a Zillow link or something, and some basic photos. And I have that for every single project. So which is instant credibility. So if someone says like, how many deals have you done? How much experience do you have? I send them that link and they can literally, they can see it all. And it's just so powerful. So even if you've done like 1 or 2 deals, like or even if you wholesale a deal, like you wholesale a deal, 3,000, if you know what they bought it for, what they put into, what they sold it for, you can say like, hey, I wholesale it, but this is what they turn it into. And this is what they made, which is really good. Like, so you're just trying to build a track record. You're just trying to showcase as much experience as you can, do it ethically, right? Like if you wholesale a deal, don't say, oh, I flipped it. You say like, you be honest, like, hey, I wholesaled it, but this is how much they made. But I'd say that's better than zero. That's better than nothing. Like, versus I've never flipped anything. Versus like, hey, someone else made money on this deal. This is how much they made, and that can be us next time.
100%. It's funny you say that about the like the project page, because I met with an investor a while back that did a decent amount of syndications and stuff like that down in South Carolina. And like he moved up here, or I forget exactly what the case was. He was up here for some reason, and we met for dinner one night, and that's what he had. He had like a manila folder, and he had like this gorgeous looking, basically like a resume, and it said like the guy's name, had his, like the picture, like his address and stuff like that. And then it showed like all the deals throughout the years, and it was really impressive. It was like a 2-page thing. That's cool. And like, damn, dude, like, wow, I still have it. And I'm like, wow, like that's
really cool.
That's incredible.
That's a good word to use too. Like people are used to like a 9-to-5 mindset. There's nothing wrong with like being an employee. But when you're looking for a job, you have a resume. Yep. So it's the same thing here, right? You have your flipping resume, or your wholesale resume, your real estate resume. Like this is what I've done in real estate. Like this is, my experience. And that's really cool though. I'm glad you saw value in that, and that like he was able to share that, and it just proves like, hey, he's the real deal. Versus saying, it's better to like show versus say. You just say, oh, I've done this or I've done this. If you can show them like, hey, this is what we did, blah blah blah, XYZ. It's really cool. It's much more powerful.
Absolutely, yeah. It's really, really cool stuff. And even like one thing too, man, is the one of the podcasts that I've been listening to on raising capital, because I've pretty much shifted like everything that I'm consuming at this point over to like that one niche. Like I have a couple books sitting over here and like just trying to like get in that space and just try to take it all in,
Yeah.
But on one of the podcasts that I've been listening to, one of the guys was mentioning on there, he said it a couple times, and it's really started to make me think, he said that there's $4 trillion sitting in retirement accounts across the United States right now.
Okay.
And I was thinking about it, man, you know what I mean? And most people, generally speaking, like have that 401k or, whatever the case may be, you just, throw money in and, watch the news every day and see if it's bullish or bearish and hope things go okay. Yeah. But, people like us that might be able to, bring these opportunities and be able to offer like an 8, 10 or more % return, for a similar, type of action, just like partnering up on a deal like that. Like they bring the capital to the table, like you execute in dispo and stuff like that. It might be something that can be really, really lucrative. And it blew my mind, man. I'm like 4 trillion with a T, like
not 4 million. Yeah, exactly. And, I think you have to think of that, again, with the opportunity and people having money sitting in their retirement account. Yeah. We have to think of the asset categories, crypto took a huge hit last year in 2022. It's down, whatever, 60-70% plus. Stock market took a big hit, 10, 15, 30%, depending on which thing you're looking at. And then real estate, I guess it's fallen a little bit for residential, but if you know what you're doing, you're still doing good. So you can give them the opportunity to invest in an asset class that hasn't, been slapped, been hit hard, and it's halved in a year. So, and I know a lot of people are kind of panicking, is it going to be another 2022? Is my retirement going to get hit by another third or more? So that 4 trillion could be 3.5 trillion now, unfortunately.
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. And it's just the thing that I've always really liked about this asset class in particular is the amount of control. So you're not just at the mercy of these huge giant companies that are making moves and doing that type of thing, and you don't really have much of a say in it. But yeah. That's terrifying to me personally. But
I had some folks liquidating money out of the stock market or brokerage accounts. It took them a long time. It took them a month or 2 months or 3 months. So you might think I have a lot of control over my retirement money. But if you ask for your money back and it takes that long to get it back, that's not good. Versus you think oh, it's stock market, so I can pull it out anytime, and that's not true. But I know real estate's a little less liquid when it comes to that, but at least that going in. That's the expectation. It might take some time to sell this property, whatever. But with the stock market and stuff, you'd figure I can pull it out today and it's fine. But even for larger amounts, 250, 500, million, it's you really can't.
Exactly. Yeah, it's 100%, man. Absolutely. So Victor, one question that I do like to ask every guest, because it's always really interesting, is how do you define wealth?
Ooh, okay, yeah.
If you need a second, that's okay.
No, I would define it. I think Robert Kiyosaki defines it really well. You always think of wealth as a number. Wealth is, how would I say it? How do I explain this? It's money. You have, so let's say you make 100,000 and you spend 100,000. You're not anywhere ahead. So wealth that's what it is. Wealth is how long you can live if you were to not make any more income of your active income. How long could you survive? And for most people, especially if they're paycheck to paycheck, which is 70% of America, and even 30% of 6-figure income earners, they can only survive that week or two. They couldn't survive a long time. So wealth is defined as if you were to stop working, how long could you survive? So wealth is you could survive infinitely. Right. So let's say your expenses are 50K a year and your asset or investments bring in 100K a year. That's wealth. That's wealth. I like to think of wealth it's not really a number. It's more like a mentality or a mindset. They talk about financial freedom, time freedom. I bake that all into wealth. That's pretty much it. I heard a good thing recently. Broke isn't a number; it's a state of mind. So if you say I'm broke, it's not oh, they have $7 in their bank account or $100 in the bank account. It's they're thinking along those I don't have money lines, And if that's the first thought you have, then it's suddenly like you're really stuck. Like if it's, oh, I want to start a business, I don't have money. Okay, well, that's the end of that conversation, and you're not going to progress anywhere. Or you're like, I want to move to take on this job. Well, I don't have any money. Then you're stuck again, and you might have had a better opportunity. You might have been able to earn more. So just thinking through that. So I know that was a long answer, but there's a lot of like elements to wealth. There's a lot of like, it's not just numbers, mindset. It's like how you think and it's how you feel. So it's very important to like think of everything there versus like, oh, if I make $1 million, I'm wealthy, or if I have $1 million cash in the bank.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you 100%. And it's always really interesting. Like when I ask guests, I really enjoy it, because like it's not one of those questions. It's like, oh, like what color is the sky? Oh, well, it's blue right now. Like it usually kind of takes people a second to be like, damn, like what does that mean? Like I don't know. I definitely agree with you. Absolutely. And I mean, yeah, exactly. So what is one piece of advice to maybe people that want to get into, flipping their first property? I know we've talked about a ton of value in here already, man, and really appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, so one piece of advice so one of the things, like I had a mentor recommend like, hey, you should get into real estate. And I was like, so I've been in it 4 years, and that was like 7 years ago. And you've seen my growth has been exponential. So where would I have been if I started 7 years ago? Maybe I'm still at 30, but I'm being able to do them all by myself in all cash. So that's where I would be. So just thinking through that was really interesting. So I would recommend for your folks, like get started now, even if it's something small, like you can take a little bit of action today. I always recommend this for my students as well. Like, just call and talk to a seller. Like don't even make an offer, just call and talk to a seller. Cause that's what a lot of people have problems with and fears with. Like, what do I say? What do I talk to them about? What if they reject my offer? And that kind of fear keeps them paralyzed and keeps them where they're at for a long time. But if you can take like little baby steps towards your goal, and like you're going to have a much better time. So I'd recommend like get started today, and do like what's the like smallest amount of action you can take to make it happen, like to do and to hit your goals. And that might be like talk to a real estate agent, or that might be talk to a bank, or that might be talk to a hard money lender. But like what's the smallest amount of things you can do where it's almost, I don't want to say embarrassing, but it's just so little, it's such a small thing, it's so easy to do, and you just do it. And then if you just do that every day and you stack it, you'll be surprised where you're at, a year from now.
I love that. No, seriously. And like the thing too is like, trying to take too much action at once too can be, add like the overwhelming factor, and then like your mind's not in the right place anymore. And it's like, oh crap, like kind of coming on like too strong almost. So kind of starting off, like you said, like from those baby steps, like, oh, today, like, we're just going to talk to, X amount of people, or like, today we're going to pull the list and get it skip traced or something. Yes. And then tomorrow we're going to jump in, or, and just kind of taking those steps. Cause it's, especially like if you've never really jumped into this type of thing before, like there's a bit of a learning curve, and like, it can definitely be a really new thing, and, can be scary. And I feel like can get overwhelming pretty easily,
For sure. I like to liken it to the gym, like a gym as a metaphor. So like when you start going to the gym, you're like, I want to improve it how I look. I want to get healthy. You don't go like, oh, I'm going to go to the gym every day at 5 a.m. because it's just not going to happen. Like you might stick to that a week. It's just like New Year's resolutions. Like you make this huge, crazy goal, which is a huge change, and it's just not going to happen. But if you said like, I'm just going to go to the gym, I'm not even going to work out, I'm just going to go to the gym once per week. Like then you can stack that. Okay, well, I go once per week and now I work out. Now I go, twice per week and now I work out. Like when I started cold call, like you stack it, you build it up where it's so like embarrassing, that first little piece of action, but then, you're building it into a habit 3 months, 6 months, 12 months from now. When I started cold calling, because that's how I get a lot of my deals. I started cold calling the first day I cold called, and I cold called for like 2 minutes. Like that's it, just 2 minutes. And then I was like, okay, well, that wasn't bad. Nobody picked up. So it was an easy 2 minutes. Exactly. Yeah. So the next day was like 3 minutes. I talked to someone and I was like, hey, you want to sell your house? And they're like, no, I'm not interested. I'm like, okay, cool. And that was it. That was 3 minutes. And then the next day I'm like, well, that wasn't bad. He just said no. That's like, he was nice about it. So I did 5 minutes. And then you just like build it from there. And then you're able to cold call for 30 minutes or an hour, or, a couple hours. But if you look at like the beginning, it's almost, again, like embarrassing. Like, it's like, wow, I cold called for 2 minutes today. Like, if you told someone that, they'd be like, what are you doing? Are you sure you're serious about this? But I'd rather you start small and build and progress than like make this crazy goal that's not going to happen. And then you get because your expectations are so high, you get deflated. Like, I didn't cold call for 10 hours today, I guess this isn't for me. And then you just kind of give up, and that's it's too high of expectations to set on yourself.
Exactly. No, I definitely agree. It's quite the it's a pretty awesome concept, you know what I mean? And there was I'm trying to remember what book it was, but there was a book. It was one of the books about habits. I don't know if it was Atomic Habits, maybe, or it was one of the other ones in that.
The Power Habit?
Similar. It might have been.
Okay.
I've read a couple. I love the science of like habit, man, and like the books around it, and it gets me excited. Like, I just love it. But I remember in one of those books there was a graph, and like on each axis there was I believe it was like effort, and I don't know if it was like time, and it was like an inverted curve. So like, the more like reps and stuff like that you do, like the effort drops off as it starts to become more of a habit. And like you said, like then you can just start to kind of stack on like, oh, here's another 5 of this or like whatever. And like, it's not like, a big shock, like, oh, like you said, like, oh, I didn't cold call for 10 hours today. Like, I did it for 30 seconds yesterday. Like, what the hell, But like, if you're able to build that up, over X amount of time, and like it gets easier as you go along, you know what I mean? And
it really does. Like, for example, I just started doing like YouTube videos, and like the first YouTube video, like I was like, how do I do the mic? How do I do the sound? Like, what do I say? And all this stuff. It was just this crazy, huge endeavor. Like, the next one became a little easier, and it just became streamlined. I've made like 5 videos or 6 videos for the last, like every week for the last week. But I'm just trying to keep it as simple as possible. Like, I record with my phone. I just have like bought a little mic recently. I just have a little selfie stick, and that's pretty much it. Yeah. And like, I just started with the phone, and I just started with like holding it up, and like my arm was tired, and that sucked, but like I got it done. So if you can like chunk and like break down your goals into something very small,
no, I definitely agree. And yeah, I mean, that we could go on a whole nother soapbox about like social media and stuff like that too, man. Because I definitely feel you with that. Like, I love when it comes to social media and stuff, like especially like, when I'm over at my building and like, just literally like taking your phone out, like as raw as it gets, like no editing or anything, like just, turn it on you and be like, oh, like this is what I'm up to today. Like, there's 5 inches of water in the basement. Like, this is how I'm going to get through it. Or, like it doesn't need to be like, it doesn't need to be perfect, especially starting off, like I love having it be like, and the same thing with the podcast as well. Like, yeah, it gets edited a little bit, you know what I mean? But like, I've always made it a point to like not aim for perfection, like many people do, because like, I want to be able to see the progression from episode 1 of, stuttering like there's no tomorrow, the awkward pauses, like, all the kind of the barriers to entry of getting in, and then be able to like just see the natural progression as you go along, and I feel like the more authentic you are, like the more relatable it is, like, and I mean, it's same thing with like the videos and stuff like that, you know what I mean? Like, like as long as you're like just putting yourself out there and like, like you get the video going, like it doesn't matter, like you're putting videos out, and like I love it.
there's also like, that brings up a good point. Like, there's value in like not being perfect and being raw, just like you're saying. Just like you said for the videos, like if it's like, this is me talking, and it's not edited too much. Same thing, just to bring it back to the cold calling, just so we have another example. Like the same thing, like if you sound too polished or you sound like too much like you're talking from a script, it's going to turn people off. And they'll be like, oh, he's a cold caller, he's a scammer or whatever. So even if you're like make mistakes, like it can even be sometimes better. So it's interesting, because we always say like, oh, you have to be perfect, or you have to, do it perfectly, execute perfectly. But sometimes you don't execute perfectly, and it's better for you. Yeah,
no, I definitely agree. I love that kind of the concept behind like the authenticity and like the raw, like, the real stuff, you know what I mean? It's
for sure.
I love that stuff. So I got one more question for you, my man. Sure. It is, do you read, and what is your favorite business, investing, or real estate book that you would recommend to anyone? It could be like podcasts or anything, you know?
Yeah, I do read. So I definitely read. I do recommend reading. I do a lot of audiobooks. So like I drive somewhat frequently. So it's nice just to like listen. It's nice because it's like someone telling you a story. You just listen in versus like actively turning pages. Also, like once I went on a trip. So I went to Brazil for a month and like I had a big backpack and like half the backpack was full of books.
Nice.
And like I finished it in like the first week, and then I'm just carrying on like half a backpack full of books. I'm like, this is dumb. Like, what am I doing? Versus like if it's on your phone, it's on Audible or whatever. It's there, and you can have hundreds of books to choose from. So I do read, and I do recommend audiobooks. What do I like the most? I think there was a good book recently that I read, which was also real estate. It's like long distance real estate investing. I think it's David Green.
The Biggerpockets one.
The Biggerpockets one.
Yes.
That was a really good one because it opens folks up to like a lot of thinking differently. Like even if you're not going to do virtual deals, like it helps you think through it differently. It also taught me a very like important idea and concept. Like we always talk about return on investment, right? You put in money, how much does it bring you every year? So like if you have a $10,000 investment, it brings you $1,000 a year, like that's 10%. Okay, ROI. But there's also like a concept of return on equity. So it's like if you were to sell the thing, like, and what's your return based on that? Like, what's your comparative cash flow if you sold the thing? And I was running it for my rentals. I have 5 rentals. I'm actually deciding to sell my rentals. They're going to be listed this week because I bought them and one of them, like, I put in $3,000, and that's all I have into it. It's cash flowing. That's great, but I figured out the return on equity. It was like 4%. So it's like if I sell the thing, can I make more than 4%? Like, yeah, definitely, easily, no problem. Yeah. So it just like opened up my mind. Like we always look at return on investment. It's like, oh, I didn't have any money into this deal. But like, if you look at investments from different angles, you're going to learn more. You're going to like see it differently. It's going to like make sense or not make sense. So it just kind of nicely opens you up for like different thinking and making better decisions.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. I really, really like those Biggerpockets books. I've bought quite a few of those things.
They're good. Yeah, they have a lot of good like podcasts and like books and stuff, lower level content. I know they have courses. I haven't done any of the courses, so I don't know. They're like $500 or $1,000. I don't know what they are, but I know they're like low ticket, like cheaper content is good. Yeah,
no, definitely, 100%.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Thank you so much for coming on here, my man. That was absolutely awesome. We're on like social media and stuff. Yeah, definitely. Where on social media can be found?
Sure, for sure. The best is Facebook for me. So just look up my name, Viktor Jiracek, or if you look up 6-Figure House Flipper or 6-Figure Flipper, I have a free Facebook group. So I have a ton of resources. I have like a repair estimate guide in there, which like it's 7 pages and it breaks down like all repairs, like how much does a roof cost? How much does flooring cost? How much does fascia and like trim cost? How much does, foundation work cost? And it just breaks everything down. So that's just like a free gift for your listeners.
Sweet. Thank you very much, man. It means a lot. I'll definitely drop all that stuff down below in the description there.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Thank you very much, man. That was awesome.
Awesome. Thanks.
All right, guys. That concludes our Creating Wealth podcast episode for today. I want to thank every single person that has listened this far. It really means a lot to know that people can learn from me and with me as we build wealth together. Hopefully you can take home at least one thing from this podcast that will improve your life just a little bit. If you could, please check me out on social. That's at Kyle Curtin Real Estate on Instagram, Facebook, and I'm on Biggerpockets. Until next time, let's build together.